Great. Chris, give us a summary overview of what this has done for you in various situations.
Oh, goodness. I have used this almost every situation I've become engaged in. I have used a chart, a scatter chart. I suppose that may be partly because of the passion that God's given me for deployment and sending and thinking, where is the strategic? God's put me in strategy. And I know that Jesus talked mostly about tactics, but strategy has some importance. And when you're looking at strategy, you've got to look at the whole picture and yet somehow see the wood for the trees. And for my purposes, if I draw a map, I've already surrendered 2 dimensions to just understanding geography, which actually I quite intuitively understand from my history anyway. So this way, it gives me 2 dimensions with which to explore other things and the way that they interact with each other. You can also use, and again, straight with Excel, you can convert this to a bubble chart, which gives you a 3rd dimension by giving you a bubble of different sizes. Instead of these being dots, you can make them a bubble. That's quite often useful to use population to, in this instance, to use population. But you can use this for things that are not countries. I use it a lot for countries and subsets and supersets of countries.
So when you have a lot of groups of data, in this case, countries, it helps you pour all the marbles on the table and sort them out a bit as to which ones you should focus on for one reason or another. Great.
Yes.
Questions from our audience here, from the group. Got time for 1 or 2. John Mayer.
Okay.
Yeah,
See a raised hand.
This expressed a good point, because you took existing data. You didn't create any new data. You took data sets that already existed, and all you did is create a new way of looking at it, interpreting it. Often we feel we have to go out and get all the new data, but in my experience, a lot of the data exists. We just have to plot it or look at it differently, and we'll get the new ideas. So I think this is very helpful for that.
Right. Yeah, I often claim, ever since I came into this area, I've been called a researcher. I often claim I'm not a researcher, I'm a data man. So it's a bit different. But Daniel?
Chris, would you say that you were describing a sense of visual logic? Would you say that a lot of what you described applies to any form of visualization of data to help us think or meditate on it in a new way, with a different light, more context or whatever?
Yeah. So a much simpler chart I often use is just a pie chart, which some people despise because it's so simple. But I think often just understanding what proportions there are of a certain whole can be really helpful. And then I, think of a different way to do it. All sorts of charts, and there are new ones being invented still as well.
To follow up on that, Chris, is there anything that guides your thoughts on which kind of visualization helps you with which kinds of questions you're thinking about? Because sometimes that can be a real hard thing to decide, is which visualization is best for this data that I'm looking at. Anything you can point practically in that direction might be of help to all of us.
That's a really good question. I'm afraid, Daniel, that I'm probably too intuitive in that space to be able to give you an answer. I would have to sit down and think, what are the criteria? It does worry me sometimes. I'm sure there must be somewhere online that helps you with what to use for when, but I did look at as I was preparing for this, I looked at one online thing which had a load of different charts, and it didn't really tell you when to use which. It just described what they were, you know. So that is a good question. I'm afraid I haven't got an answer.
Hey, Chris,
Thank
could
you.
I chirp up at this point?
Yeah, Dave.
Dave here, yes. Yeah, I'm a global analyst, and this is a very important question for me, what to use when. And it just so happened, Christmas before last, my oldest son gave me a book, which is basically an atlas of every way to visualize anything and when and where and so on and so forth and how to do it. I can't remember the exact name. I was just searching for it. I don't have it to hand, but what I'll do is I'll find out the name of the book and I'll post it in tomorrow's meeting.
Thank you very much, Dave. That would be very
Great.
helpful.
Excellent.
Great.
Well, I'm afraid we are needing to move on to our next presenter. Thank you, Chris.